Good morning. We are finishing up with chapter A, that's learning about the patriarchs in the book of Genesis. So we've already learned about Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Esau. And then Jacob getting tricked. So it's kind of karma. He was tricking Isaac. Now he gets tricked with who he marries. Remember, that was the last story we read. It was about how Jacob wanted to marry, he wanted to marry Rachel, and he ended up marrying Leah first. Now we're going to read about Joseph. So we're going to read Genesis chapter 37, verses 12 through 36, and then we're going to read chapter 41 in Genesis. So if you are at home and you do not have your Bible, I have it attached to this assignment so you can follow along with that. Genesis chapter 37, Joseph is sold into slavery. Jacob settled in the land where his father had sojourned, the land of Canaan. This is the story of the family of Jacob. When Joseph was 17 years old, he was tending the flocks with his brothers. He was an assistant to the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah, and Joseph brought their father bad reports about them. Israel loved Joseph best of all of his sons. Who is Israel? No, this is a person whose name gets changed to Israel. Think about what I read at the beginning, right by that 37. Jacob settled in the land of Canaan, where his father had sojourned. And now we hear Israel loved Joseph best of all of his sons.
This Abraham.
Gregory? Jacob. So Jacob's name is changed to Israel. So Israel loved Joseph best of all of his sons, for he was the child of his old age, and he had made him a long ornamented tunic. When his brothers saw that their father loved him best of all of his brothers, they hated him so much that they could not say a kind word to him. So when they say that Jacob gave him an ornamented tunic, does anybody know what that is? Tristan?
It's like decorated.
Yeah, it's decorated.
Clothing.
Nick?
Does it have like a lot of like really expensive stuff on it? Like ornaments or like...
Not really expensive, but it's made out of lots of different colors. So if we've heard the story of Joseph and the amazing Technicolor dream coat, and the Joseph has the coat of many colors, this is the coat that they're talking about. So he gets this amazing cloak, this tunic, this coat from his dad, and all of his brothers are super jealous. Once Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. There we were, binding sheaves in the field, putting together all of the grain in the field, when suddenly my sheaf rose to an upright position, and your sheaves formed a ring around my sheaf and bowed down to it." So they're bowing down to him. His brothers said to him, "Are you really going to make yourself king over us? Will you rule over us?" So they hated him all the more because of his dreams and his reports. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Look, I had another dream," he said. "This time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told it to his father and his brothers, his father reproved him and asked, "What is the meaning of this dream of yours? Can it be that I and your mother and your brothers are to come and bow to the ground before you?" So his brothers were furious at him, but his father kept the matter in hand. One day when his brothers had gone to a pasture their father's flocks at Shechem, Israel said to Joseph, "Are your brothers not tending our flocks at Shechem? Come and I will send you to them." "I am ready," Joseph answered. "Go then," he replied. "See if all is well with your brothers and the flocks, and bring back word." So he sent him off from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph reached Shechem, a man came upon him as he was wandering about in the fields. "What are you looking for?" the man asked him. "I'm looking for my brothers," he answered. "Please tell me where they are tending the flocks." The man told him, I think I read a little bit more than I was supposed to read, but it's important to know about the dreams that he was having and why his brothers were upset with him. Okay, so he says, please tell me where they are tending the flocks. The man told him, they have moved on from here. In fact, I heard them say, let us go on to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. They saw him from a distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. They said to one another, here comes that dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the cisterns here. We could say that a wild beast devoured him. We will see then what comes of his dreams. But when Reuben heard this, he tried to save him from their hands, saying, we must not take his life. Then Reuben said, do not shed blood. Throw him into this cistern in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him. His purpose was to save him from the hands and restore him to his father. So when Joseph came up to his brothers, they stripped him of his tunic, the long ornamented tunic he had on. Then they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat. Looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, their camels laden with gum, balm, and resin to be taken down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, what is to be gained by killing our brother and concealing his blood? Come, let us sell him to these Ishmaelites instead of doing away with him ourselves. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh. His brothers agreed. Midianite traders passed by, and they pulled Joseph out of the cistern. They sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. When Reuben went back to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not in it, he tore his garments, and returning to his brothers, he exclaimed, the boy is gone, and where can I turn? They took Joseph's tunic, and after slaughtering a goat, dipped the tunic in its blood. Then they sent someone to bring the long ornamented tunic to their father with the message, we found this. See whether it is your son's tunic or not. He recognized it and exclaimed, my son's tunic! A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph has been torn to pieces. Then Jacob tore his garments, put sackcloth on his loins, and mourned his son for many days. Though his sons and daughters tried to console him, he refused all consolation, saying, no, I will go down mourning to my son in Sheol. Thus did his father weep for him. The Midianites, meanwhile, sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, an official of Pharaoh and his chief steward. So Reuben is his brother who didn't want the other brothers to kill him. He said, just throw him in the cistern, and then he planned, I'll come back and save him. But for right now, we're not going to kill him. We're just going to put him in the cistern, and then I'll come back to rescue him. But when he came back, he was gone. So Reuben was all upset because he can't save his brother now. So now we're skipping ahead to chapter 41. Chapter 41. Pharaoh's dream. Because remember, Joseph has these dreams of the future and what's going to happen. After a lapse of 2 years, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile when up out of the Nile came 7 cows, fine looking and fat. They gazed in the reed grass. Behind them, 7 other cows, poor looking and gaunt, came up out of the Nile, standing on the bank of the Nile beside the others. The poor looking gaunt cows devoured the 7 fine looking fat cows. Then the Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had another dream. He saw 7 ears of grain, fat and healthy, growing on a single stalk. Behind them sprouted 7 ears of grain, thin and scorched by the east wind, and the thin ears swallowed up the 7 fat, healthy ears. Then Pharaoh woke up. It was a dream. Next morning his mind was agitated. So Pharaoh had all the magicians and sages of Egypt summoned and recounted his dream to them, but there was no one to interpret it for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to the Pharaoh, now I remember my negligence. Once when Pharaoh was angry with his servants, he put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the chief steward. Later we both had dreams on the same night, and each of our dreams had its own meaning. There was a Hebrew youth with us, a slave of the chief steward, and when we told him our dreams, he interpreted them for us and explained for each of us the meaning of his dream. Things turned out just as he had told us. I was restored to my post, but the other man was impaled. Pharaoh therefore had Joseph summoned, and they hurriedly brought him from the dungeon. After he shaved and changed his clothes, he came to Pharaoh. Pharaoh then said to Joseph, I had a dream, but there was no one to interpret it. But I hear it said of you, if he hears a dream, he can interpret it. It is not I, Joseph replied to Pharaoh, but God who will respond for the well-being of Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, in my dream, I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when up from the Nile came 7 cows, fat and well-formed. They grazed in the reed grass. Behind them came 7 other cows, scrawny, most ill-formed and gaunt. Never have I seen such a specimen as these in all the land of Egypt. The gaunt bad cows devoured the first 7 fat cows. But when they had consumed them, no one could tell them that they had done so because they looked as bad as before. Then I woke up, and in another dream I saw 7 ears of corn, full and healthy, growing on a single stalk. Behind them sprouted 7 ears of grain, shriveled and thin and scorched by the east wind. And the 7 thin ears swallowed up the 7 healthy ears. I have spoken to the magicians, but there is no one to explain it to me. Joseph said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's dreams have the same meaning. God has made known to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 healthy cows are 7 years, and the 7 healthy ears are 7 years, the same in each dream. The 7 thin bad cows that come up after them are 7 years, as are the 7 thin ears scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. Things are just as I told Pharaoh. God has revealed to Pharaoh that what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are now coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will rise up after them, when all the abundance will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. When the famine has exhausted the land, no trace of the abundance will be found in the land because of the famine that follows it, for it will be very severe. That Pharaoh had the same dream twice means that the matter has been confirmed by God, and that God will soon bring it about. So the 7 healthy cows, the 7 healthy grains of corn, ears of corn, mean there's going to be 7 years of really good abundance. Their crops are going to grow. Animals are going to be surviving and big and healthy. And then it's going to be followed by 7 years of famine where there's not going to be any food around.
Why did this happen?
Because it happens. Because there is famine that comes. There will be times of drought where there's no rain and you need to prepare for it. So God is sending them the dreams as a warning that there's going to be this famine coming. So you need to prepare for it. I'm giving you 7 years of good times to prepare for the 7 years of bad times that are coming. Therefore, Pharaoh set out a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh act and appoint overseers for the land to organize it during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these coming good years, gather the grain under Pharaoh's authority for food in the cities, and they should guard it. This food will serve as a reserve for the country against the 7 years of famine that will occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish in the famine. This advice pleased Pharaoh and all of his servants. Could we find another like him? Pharaoh asked his servants, a man so endowed with the Spirit of God? So Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, there is no one as discerning and wise as you are. You shall be in charge of my household, and all my people will obey your command. Only in respect to the throne will I outrank you. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, look, I put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. With that, Pharaoh took off his signet ring and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He then had him ride in his second chariot, and they shouted Abrek before him. Thus was Joseph installed over the whole land of Egypt. I am Pharaoh, he told Joseph, but without your approval, no one shall lift hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh also bestowed the name of Zaphanath-Phaneah on Joseph, and he gave him in marriage to Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of Heliopolis. And Joseph went out over the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. After Joseph left Pharaoh, he went throughout the land of Egypt. During the 7 years of plenty, when the land produced abundant crops, he collected all the food of these years of plenty that the land of Egypt was enjoying and stored it in the cities, placing in each city as the crops of the fields around it. Joseph collected grain like the sands of the sea, so much that at last he stopped measuring it, for it was beyond measure. Before the famine years set in, Joseph became the father to 2 sons, born to him by Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of Heliopolis. Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh, meaning God has made me forget entirely my troubles and my father's house. And the second he named Ephraim, meaning God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. When the 7 years of abundance enjoyed by the land of Egypt came to an end, the 7 years of famine set in. Just as Joseph had said, although there was famine in all other countries, food was available throughout the land of Egypt. When all the land of Egypt became hungry and the people cried to Pharaoh for food, Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you." When the famine had spread throughout the land, Joseph opened all the cities that had grain and rationed it to the Egyptians, since the famine had gripped the land of Egypt. Indeed, the whole world came to Egypt, to Joseph, to buy grain, for famine had gripped the whole world. And we can see the heading of the next section is the brothers' first journey to Egypt. Why do you think his brothers have to come to Egypt?
Because they,
Go ahead, Peyton.
because they have to prepare for the famine, so they.
Because it is the famine time, and they hadn't prepared because they didn't know. They weren't with Joseph to know that the famine was coming. So all the other countries, Egypt was prepared because the Pharaoh had the dreams, but all the other countries were not prepared. So they're all coming to Egypt to ask for their help because Egypt has all this food in storage. So remember way back to the beginning when we read about the brothers bowing down to Joseph. Think about that. Now they're going to be coming to Joseph to get food. And what are they going to have to do? Bow down to him. So his dreams do come true. All right, so for the assignment for today, it's finishing up the last part of our reading guide. And I was also going to do a Joseph project, but we're running out of time. So we're going to do the Joseph poster tomorrow. So we will correct the reading guide tomorrow and do the poster tomorrow. Wednesday is Mass. Our quiz will be on Thursday. So make sure you have your reading guide completely done and ready to correct first thing tomorrow, and then we'll work on the Joseph poster. Mass Wednesday, quiz on Thursday. So to my friends at home, we hope you are well, and we hope to see you soon. Know that we will be doing the Joseph poster tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.